Log Horizon, Volume 1, Chapter 5, Part 5. And now the situation had played out, just as Shiroe and the others had anticipated. They'd passed through the gate under the crude stairs of the Brigadiers. As Serara and the others went through, about 10 of the ruffians followed them, keeping their distance. They were probably planning to attack as soon as they were away from the town. Even Serara, who had never directly encountered bloodlust, seemed to sense that surge of emotion, something between malice and spite. Her shoulders were trembling. I can't reasonably ask her to trust me. Shiroe was fully aware of Serara's anxiety. To some extent, her fears were correct. The Brigadiers were a force to be reckoned with. It was no wonder she doubted their chances of victory. The tension in the air grew thicker with each step they took. The gate that led to Susukino receded behind them. Surely but slowly, the circle of Brigadiers was closing in. This is far enough, Shiroe murmured. Then he raised his voice. Excuse me! Which of you gentlemen is Demiquas of the Brigadiers? His words caused a stir in the players that surrounded them. They hadn't expected such a clear challenge. No, Shiroichi, my boy. It's rude to bellow questions at people like that. I know who he is. He's that big fellow over there. Oi, Demiquas! The burly man who stepped from the crowd, as if drawn by Nyanta's voice, was the Brigadiers' leader, Demiquas. His powerfully muscled torso was sheathed in tight-fitting light armor that resembled a singlet, and he wore weapons that looked like tiger claws on both hands. Although he'd been modeled on the same polygon data as everyone else, and should have been quite handsome, his coarse expression mirrored the man inside. So you're the punks who've been buzzing around Serara! Ah, that was me, and Alley-Cat is more apt than punk, really. Nyanta corrected him, taking things at his own speed as usual. In contrast to what he was saying, his mellow voice was calm, dignified, and mature, and it dampened his opponent's urge to fight. However, his next words were cutting. Young people are always reckless and wild. It's the way of the world, and maybe permitting that young enthusiasm is a virtue of adults, but there are limits. What are you drooling about, furry? I'm about to tell you. Listen very closely, Demiquas. You've gone too far. I know you plan to attempt a player kill here, so I'll save you the trouble. Cutting down uppity young bucks is another adult responsibility. I'll give Mew the opportunity to train against an expert. Have at me! Those are pretty strong words for the captain, but what these guys have done is actually criminal. I guess I can't blame him. Even as Shiroe thought that, he was using his mental menu to check the power of the enemies around them. Huh, what are you running on about? Who says we have to play by your rules? I've got 10 guys with me here! I'm sorry to interrupt. It's alright, Demiquas. It doesn't have to be you. And actually, you, sir. The player in the grey robe. It's a secret level item from the Salamander's Cavern, isn't it? You look stronger than this fellow. I think we'd all be more satisfied with the outcome if you fought instead of the monk. Captain Nyanta, go ahead and fight the magic user instead. Are you aware that I'm Grey Steel Rondarg? You have a point. Let's make sure they know what's what. As Serara watched in shock, this was nothing like the plan they discussed earlier. Shiroe switched the target from Demiquas to the magic user at his side. Even when Nyanta expressed agreement with the change, a ripple of bewilderment spread through the Brigadiers group. Some looked at the magic user Rondarg, while others watched Demiquas, and even Shiroe's group picked up on the slight change in temperature. So they aren't a united front. I knew it. A guild cobbled together as quickly as theirs couldn't be. That Rondarg guy is second in command, and Demiquas' advisor. I guess we'll see how much control you have over your guild members, Demiquas. Shiroe felt his feelings go quiet, flickering like flame far below the surface. True, Shiroe was bad at dealing with people. It was safe to say that he hated having noisy idiots hanging around. That didn't mean he couldn't handle it. He was a pacifist, and he didn't want to fight other players. That didn't mean he couldn't do it. Quite the opposite, in fact. Under the circumstances, even Shiroe could feel it. He was fully aware of the emotion, black as the ocean at night, that was filling his heart. It was rooted in his irritation, and it was an impulse toward destruction. Rip him to pieces, Nyanta had said. His usual peaceful sunlit smile had crumbled, and his grin had revealed feline fangs. Even Shiroe had similar fangs, deep inside. Shiroe's unconscious was convinced that those who lived by the sword should be prepared to die by the sword. No mercy would be shown here. Greysteel Rondarg, wasn't it? A by-name, that's impressive. Yes, you'll suit us much better than Demiquas over here. This is Captain Nyanta, your opponent. He's a swashbuckler. Let's begin the duel. We don't intend to run. Let's hurry and get started. From your equipment, you seem to be a first-class professional. This is your way, isn't it? Using combat to settle scores once and for all. Demiquas insists on a group attack because he fears my rapiers, poor soul. We'll just ignore him. Nyanta's insults proved to be the last straw. Enraged, Demiquas stalked up to stand in front of Nyanta, his expression a mixture of anger and tension and scorn.
Fine, Joker, I'll take you on. I'll give you a one-way ticket to hell. With my fist!
Under the pretense of accepting a one-on-one battle, Demiquas threw a punch at Nyanta, putting all his strength behind the surprise attack. Watching the punch as it headed straight for his nose, Nyanta evaded, leaping back several meters. He drew the two rapiers he wore at his hips, holding them at the ready, and gave a mocking laugh. That's quite a punch. He actually has to hit you to do damage, though. Say, are you sure you're okay without backup to me, what's your name? Shiroe heckled as Demiquas launched a few more fierce punches. Demiquas' anger seemed to blaze even hotter.
Once I put down this old furry, I'll tear you apart!
He roared. Yes. Until then, though, you are fighting me. There is a lady present, and I'd rather not force her to witness anything gruesome. If you'd like me to hold back, please speak up quickly.
Shove it!
As Nyanta leapt nimbly out of the way, Demiquas' attack seemed to completely ignore the distance between them. He launched 2 or 3 destructive left hooks from a stance like a shot putter's. Nyanta deflected some of these attacks with his rapiers, but several hit home with heavy thuds. In the first place, Demiquas had nearly half again as much HP as Nyanta. On top of that, even if Nyanta evaded more than half of them, the few jabs and kicks that got through were heavy enough to drain his HP.
Come on!
Demiquas closed in, his face radiant with fierce joy. Demiquas was a monk. Monk was one of the 3 warrior classes, along with a guardian and samurai. All the warrior classes specialized in drawing enemy attacks on the front line and were designed with an emphasis on defense. That meant that monks, who were lightly equipped and couldn't wear anything sturdier than leather armor, were unusual for the category. In Elder Tales, spells and sword techniques were known as special skills. In addition to proper names and effects, each special skill came with set values for required MP, cast time, and recast time. Cast time was the amount of time between the point when a player selected a special skill and the point when the skill activated, the equivalent of charge time. Recast time was the amount of time that had to pass after a special skill was used before it could be used again. During recast time, it was possible to do other things, but one couldn't use the special skill they just used. Most powerful skills couldn't be used again right away. For example, most of the special skills used by the samurai class had long recast times. This meant that samurai fought by taking careful aim with special skills that had powerful effects. In contrast, the recast time for monks' convenient major special skills was short. Specific examples included lightning straight and wyvern kick skills. Monks were excellent at paying out unbroken wave attacks by using many moves with a focus on attacks with high basic performance. Although their armor was the thinnest of the warrior classes, monks were light on their feet, and they had the best evasive abilities of the 3. In addition, just as guardians had special shield-based defense skills, monks had several evasive defense skills, such as Phantom Step, which let the player evade an opponent's attack by leaving a body double in their place, and Dragon Scale Stance, which protected the player from flame and ice attacks. Monks' defense skills was supported by the player's physical abilities and special skills, not by their equipment. Monks could acquire first-rate fighting abilities even without rare high-level gear, and they had a solid reputation for being the handiest of the warrior classes.
What's the matter, huh? Attack already! Is defense all you got?
Nyanta took 2 steps back, managing to parry Demiquas' attack. However, Demiquas closed the several meters between them in one move, with a flying kick wrapped in a dark green aura. Nyanta evaded that kick as well, but Demiquas segued into a 1-2 punch without even blinking. Demiquas' kick was a wyvern kick. The skill had forward thrust and collision detection, and Demiquas activated it in order to close distances. Since he was using it as a move technique to check Nyanta and close the gap between them, he always got in close to Nyanta and paid out a rapid serial left and right attack, which meant that Nyanta couldn't keep his distance. He's pretty good. He isn't giving Nyanta any room to run. Shiroe was secretly impressed. Relief was spreading among the Brigadiers, whose unstable atmosphere had betrayed the guild's internal conflicts up until a few moments ago. It was the reaction of men who were confident that their leader's complete victory was assured. However, as Nyanta parried a wide hook, he lightly jabbed a knee into Demiquas' vulnerable side from point-blank range, then used that graceful attack as a foothold from which to change his stance in mid-air. With a rapier attack that seemed to split the air, Nyanta slashed through the guard on Demiquas' thigh, leaving a wound as if the monk had been jabbed with an ice pick. Shifting his grip and taking a new defensive stance, Nyanta watched Demiquas with steely eyes, letting the tips of his rapier skim through the air like swallows. Nyanta was a swashbuckler. It was one of the close-range attack classes, and one of the few that fought with two swords. It was characterized by lightning-fast serial attacks that made the best use of the weapons in both hands, and by wide-range attacks that made use of rotation. Taken singly, swashbuckler attacks had less force than an assassin's, but they were speed fighters that accumulated overall damage through multiple attacks. As a class, swashbucklers were capable of a wide range of variations, depending on the swashbuckler's choice of weapons and the special skills they decided to focus on. Nyanta's fighting style featured twin rapiers. The attack speed of this style was second only to the twin dagger style, where the player held a knife in each hand, and it made its user one of the fastest fighters around. Another feature that distinguished the swashbuckler class was their various sword attacks with bonus effects. The swashbuckler's exquisitely accurate attacks used attack speed reduction, evasion, performance reduction, defense reduction, and other effects to steal the target's strengths and expose their shortcomings as even more fatal weaknesses.
Your hairy thighs are on display. Just look at all that fuzz. You could practically braid it.
Nyanta teased. Demiquas' face went purple. However, Nyanta didn't let the opening escape him. His rapiers accurately punctured holes in all four of Demiquas' limbs with a light noise, almost like the click of typewriter keys, that didn't seem as if it could be coming from a weapon. The 4 wounds left in the monk's arms were known as Viper Slash. By wounding the tendons in the player's arm, the attack lowered the hit rate of their attacks for several dozen seconds. The 3 wounds in his thighs were bloody piercing. By cutting the legs, the attack reduced the player's agility and lowered their evasive capabilities. Nyanta was working to strip away his opponent's fighting power with the surgeon's eye and the will to decisively execute his plan. The calm advisor who'd been dubbed the retiree was nowhere to be seen.
Gah, quit jumping around, freak! Fight fair and square!
Coming from Mew, fair and square sounds polluted. In terms of HP, Demiquas had the advantage. Nyanta's HP had already been drained to 30%. As expected of a warrior class, Demiquas still had more than twice Nyanta's HP left. Right now, though, anyone on the battlefield could see that the lone lanky swashbuckler held the initiative. Thrust and stab, flick and dazzle. Slim steel lines even thinner than a fingertip drew a lacy filigree of silver and sparks in the air, forming an ironclad defense that thwarted Demiquas. The speed and attack powers Demiquas had at the beginning of the battle were long gone. Most importantly, his HP and MP were draining away along with all the blood he was losing, moment by moment, from his pierced limbs. The Brigadiers, who had been reassured by Demiquas' activity just moments before, suddenly began to mutter among themselves. The mutter held the fear and unease that their leader might actually lose, coupled with irrepressible curiosity and a furtive joy. In all likelihood, Demiquas was a tyrant within his guild as well. The Brigadiers seemed to feel an ill-natured detached glee at the idea that he might lose in public. Shiroe picked up on that emotion. He signaled to Serara. Serara, who'd been watching Nyanta's gallant fight so desperately that she didn't even notice her fingernails biting into her palms, came back to herself with a jolt when Shiroe touched her shoulder. The voice in her ear, so faint that she could barely hear it, said, "At my signal, cast a pulse recovery spell on all parties." Serara's eyes widened. Of course, as a healer, even a minor one, she fully intended to recover Nyanta once he won. But why at my signal? And why not just Nyanta, but everybody? She was about to ask Shiroe when she heard an unbelievable yell.
Damn it, you cocky little... Enough of your lousy duel! Healer, recover these wounds in my arms and legs! Assassin squad, skin this cat bastard!
Demiquas, finally unable to take the brilliance of the swordsman's techniques, ordered the Brigadiers to attack en masse. To read along with audio light novel Log Horizon or to read on your own time, buy the light novel.